Alright, so this is the final part of this whole video series for the dog. Let's get started, and I would suggest, since the body is pretty uniform all the way around, I would suggest that we do the legs first. That way it's kind of like the establishing point, and then we can move from there. So what you're going to need for this part is you might need some of these straight pins, and these are really nice and come in handy for keeping your work in the place that you want them to be. A yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and some stuffing. I don't have the stuffing on the table because I don't want to crowd it, but you will need a little bit of stuffing for some of the parts of the body, like the tail and the snout, just to fluff them up a bit. Let's get started. Alright, so I'm gonna kind of place them. The first one can really kind of go anywhere that you want it to, just making sure you're gonna like how it looks. So I am going to keep mine like that. And I'm going to get some of my straight pins and just pin this leg in place. And if you want to pin the other leg on, you can, or if you want to wait to do that, that's also okay. I am just going to leave this on, and then I'm going to sew this leg on, and then I will put the other one on and sew the other leg on. So I'm going to do everything one at a time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath one of the stitches of the body, and then I'm going to come up. I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to pull the yarn through, and then I'm going to go underneath the leg, and I'm going to catch one of the single crochets and pull it through. And then I'm going to go in the next stitch underneath a stitch from the body, out of the stitch underneath the body, and then through one of the single crochets. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to go in the next single crochet, I'm going to go underneath a stitch from the body, go out, I'm going to take this pin out, and then I'm going to go underneath this single crochet and pull it out and take the straight pin out. And then I'm just going to do this again. So going in that single crochet, going underneath the stitch from the body, poking out from the body, pulling out, and then going underneath and picking up a stitch from the leg and pulling it tightly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through that little stitch right there and go into the body. And since the body and the legs are the same color, I'm going to pull it through some of the stitches of the body, and then I'm going to knot off, and I'm also going to show you how to knot off. But first I want to make sure I'm going to be happy with how my leg is going to be dangling. And I think I'll be pretty happy with that. If you want to, you can do another run through that same row, or if you want to put stitches in between the second and third row right here, you can totally do that. It's completely up to you. But I think I'm just going to leave it like this, and I might do another run through on that same row, but I am just gonna go through this stitch and then before I pull it tight, I'm gonna leave a loop, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my needle and go through that loop and pull it to make a knot. And then I'm actually going to go back through the stitches of the leg, and I'm going to just put some reinforcements because I just don't want it to come undone. And I'm not necessarily going through every single stitch this time. I'm just going through the stitches that my needle takes me through. Okay, so that's how that looks. And now I am just going to knot off several times, so I'm just gonna go through that same stitch around it, leave a loop, and then I'm going to take my yarn needle, go through that loop, and pull it tightly. And I'm going to go through another spot, and then knot off at that spot too. And then I'm just going to carry this through once more, through another stitch. And then once I knot off, I'm just going to pull this through the body a few times. And if you get to the point where you're just going so fast that you kind of pull it in, pull the body in, all you have to do is just take your needle, go underneath, and then just pull right back out and up, and the body will come back to the shape that it was. So no need to panic. Alright, so I'm going to leave that as it is, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the yarn a little bit tight, and then I'm just going to cut it. That way it kind of bounces back in. So that is one leg done. So we're going to do the second leg. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the last one. So I'm just going to go underneath the stitch and then pick up a stitch from the body and then go up on a single crochet from the leg. I'm going to take this out, and then I'm gonna do the same thing again. And now I'm just gonna bury this yarn tail and knot off. So those are the legs, as you can see. And now we're gonna do the arms. So now I'm gonna show you how to do an arm. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of map out where I feel the arm would look good. So I'm gonna take the straight pins and I'm just gonna kind of put them in there to keep the arm in place while I do this. You don't have to use them, but I personally would highly recommend them. Alright, so for sake of time, I'm only gonna show you one arm, and then I will let you do the other one, and then we will come back to the next part. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through a stitch from the body and then come back up and grab the single crochet stitches from the arm, and then I'm going to go in, grab the single crochet stitches, go underneath a body stitch, okay, and then if you need to turn your work while you are doing this, that's completely fine. And then I'm going to go in, grab the single crochet stitches, grab a body stitch, come out, and then grab a single crochet from the arm, and then go in through another single crochet and grab another body stitch to kind of finish that off. And then if you're happy with the way it's kind of flowy like this, then you can just leave it like that. And if you want to tack it down a little bit, you can just run a stitch through one of these stitches and then run it through one of the arm stitches and pull it tight, and it'll keep it down. But I am just gonna let it kind of just hang out So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knot off. So I'm going to take this, pull it tightly, and then just cut that off. Alright, so I'm gonna do the other arm and I'll come back and show you the ears. Alright, so I have the arms and the legs on. Next, we are going to do the ears. So you kind of want to map out where you want your ear to be. I think for this one's ears, I'm going to put them a little bit closer together. Okay, so just going to make sure from all angles that it looks alright. And then I'm going to take a few of my straight pins and I'm going to pin them down. So for the ear, I'm going to do the same thing like I did with the arms and the legs. I'm going to go underneath a stitch from the body and then go up and grab a single crochet stitch from the ear. And I'm going to go underneath a single crochet from the ear. And I'm going to go underneath the stitch from the body and go up and grab a single crochet from the ear. Go in a single crochet, grab a single crochet from the body, go underneath, and just keep on doing that. Grabbing a single crochet from the ear, getting a single crochet from the body, and then going underneath a stitch from the ear, going in and under a stitch from the ear, and finding a stitch from the body, and then going through that last single crochet, and then once you're all the way over, what you want to do is you want to go through that stitch on the side, and then you want to go underneath the stitch that's kind of underneath the ear so that you don't really see the pink. And then since the ear, if you choose to do an alternate color, you're just going to have to kind of weave in and out of the body a lot to kind of tangle the yarn in with the polyfill and the yarn itself. But if you want to, you can knot the yarn off underneath the ear, or you can weave it into the ear itself and knot off there. Completely up to you. And I'll show you what I mean by weaving in through the ear. So I'm just going to go underneath the stitch and then go in and then just kind of find a stitch in the ear, but making sure that you're not going through both sides of the ear. Just do your best to kind of find the middle of the ear from both sides, if that makes any sense. and then just knot off. And that way when you pull it tight and then cut it, it's gonna kind of bounce back into the body or the base of whatever you're working on, so you don't have to kind of stuff it back in. It's just already gonna bounce back. So go ahead and do the ear off camera, and if you need to see the ear being done again, you can just rewind and you can use this as a reference for the side. So I will be right back and we will continue on. Alright, so the ears are now on. It's looking really cute. So I'm going to start with the eyes next. So we're first going to start with the white of the eyes. So you see I have this little piece of yarn left from when we did the white part of the eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a yarn needle and I'm just going to weave it through the stitches a little bit so that it kind of just buries in the eye. And then, just like we did with all the other pieces, we are going to pull it a little tight and cut it. And now we're going to shape it how we want to before we put it on. And we're just going to kind of map it out how we want our eyes to be placed. So I think about right there is probably good. So I'm just going to put a few of these little straight pins in. Again, I would highly suggest that you use these. And I'm going to yarn the needle, and then I'm going to go underneath the body, go underneath the stitch, go underneath the stitch of the eye, and then go in and out of one of the stitches, and then grab a hold of a stitch from the body, and then go behind a single crochet or one of the stitches of the eye, and then pull it towards you. And then you're going to put your needle in this next stitch and pull it away from you. Grab a stitch from the body, and then go in through another stitch. And you're just going to do this all the way around the eye. And then once you get back to where you started, you can just weave in and out of the body a bunch of times until you feel comfortable with how you weaved everything together. And I'm going to knot off. Okay, and you're gonna want to save your white yarn scraps for the whites of the eyes. So I'm gonna take a black part of the eye, and I'm gonna do the same thing with that extra little tail at the end. I'm just gonna weave that in a little bit. So for the black part of the eye, you kind of want to put it down. You don't really want it in the middle. You kind of want it just down towards the bottom of the white. And then you just want to put a few little straight pins in like that to keep it in place. And this might be a bit of a harder part to do just because you're going through a layer of black, a layer of white, and possibly a layer of the body color. So it might be a little bit difficult, but I did it with one, so it's gonna work out perfectly fine. So I'm just gonna go through a black, go through a black stitch, pick up a stitch from the white, and when you pick up a stitch from the white, do your best to pick one up that's kind of behind the black so that it's not, so you can't see black in the white, if that makes sense. But sometimes, even if you try really hard to avoid it, it's still gonna happen. And now I'm just going to take it through the last stitch, and then I'm just going to weave it through the body, in and out. So pull that string tightly and then cut it. Okay, and then do the other eye. Come back and I will show you the whites of the eyes and the snout and tail. Alright, so I got the eye on, and now I'm going to show you how to do the whites of the eyes. Like the little sparkle, like how Coco has in his eyes. So what you want to do is you just want to take the white and go in through a stitch on the black and out. And then leave a good tail so that you can weave it in, but just keep on going in and out like that. And then you only want to loop around like twice, and then you're gonna go to the other eye and you're just gonna go through one of the stitches. And you're gonna loop around twice, just like we did before. Oops, I don't know what happened there, but that's okay. It'll just be a little bit more sparkle in the eye. So see, there are things that like that happen sometimes, and sometimes you just gotta go with the flow, and it's okay if it doesn't work out quite alright, because it's your own little touch. Alright, so now you're just going to weave in and out, and since this part is white, what you may want to do is you may want to go through one of the stitches and knot off if you feel the need to. So I'm just gonna do that once so that it's pretty solid in there. And then I'm going to just weave in and out through the head. And here's where we will stop. Okay. And then for this little piece here, I am just going to go in and make another loop around that white, especially since we had to do an extra here, just to make it a little bit more even. And then I'm just going to knot off the rest of it, or weave in and out of the head, the rest of it I should say. Okay, and with this little bit that's poking out, there's not really any point in cutting it, so I'm just gonna take my needle and just kind of poke it back in. Okay. There you go. So that is how you do the eyes. And so the next little bit, I'm going to show you how to put on the muzzle or the face. This is where you're going to need some stuffing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the straight pins again. So I'm actually going to lay it down a little bit like this. And then I'm just going to put it how I see is a good fit. So now I'm going to start sewing it on. So I'm just going to go underneath one of the body stitches and come up and then go underneath one of the single crochets. And if you have to kind of just squish the muzzle down a little bit so it's flat, that's completely fine. That's totally fine. Just as long as you're getting the muzzle on, that's all that matters. And then just kind of keep going around and keep catching the stitches. And you don't want to close this, you don't want to sew this closed all the way because we're going to be putting stuffing in. So leave a good amount unstuffed. Okay, so I'm going to start stuffing now. So I'm going to take out the pins. Okay, grab a bunch of stuffing here, and you can make this as stuffed or as loose as you want it to be. And I'm just taking the stuffing, and as you can see, I'm literally like stuffing it in there. And if you find that it can't all fit, then take some out, and then if more can fit, put more in. So now I'm just going to go and finish. And if you notice that the stuffing is coming through some of your stitches, you can always go back over some of those stitches to put reinforcement in if you feel it is necessary. Okay, so that is how it looks like. The little face. Looks pretty cute so far, I'd say. So I am just giving a quick look over to see if there are any stitches that I might have missed, and it looks like there might be, so I'm going to go through to that side. And just go through that stitch again. Okay, so I'm probably about good. So I am going to just knot off several times. muzzle and the mouth. And now for the tail. And I'm gonna stuff it a little bit. And then just find a good place that you feel like the tail would go well. And I'm just going to put a few little straight pins in it. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I've been doing with every other piece. So I'm going to go underneath and grab a stitch from the body and then go to the tail, grab a stitch. Keep on doing that around. All right, so we're almost done. And we're at the end, so you can just weave in and out of the body. And if you want to, you can also knot off in the tail as well. That's fine. So I'm gonna kind of weave through the body a bit. And then I'm also going to go through the tail and knot off. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of go up the tail and weave in and out of it a little bit, just to finish it. I've already knotted off, so alright. So that is done. I'm just going to pull it tight and cut. And that is the finished dog. I hope that you liked this video. Thank you so much for watching through all of the parts and the final video. I'm so happy I was able to film this, and I just want to thank you guys for watching and for your support. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!